Welcome you all to the course on gender studies. This is the 8th episode in this series. Let me tell you the 3 objectives that I have framed for this episode on Toril Moi'S Feminist Literary Criticism. The first objective is to explain the 3 important categories in feminist literary theory. The second objective is to understand the relevance of the 3 terms in the development of feminist theory. The third objective is to develop the inclination to analyze a work of art using the terms discussed in this essay. Now let us know something about Toril Moi and then we'll get into the essay. Toril Moi is a living writer from Norway. She is a professor of literature and romance studies, and her popular work is Sexual or Textual Politics. The present essay, which is given to us in our feminist literary criticism, Toril Moi demystifies or clarifies the terms such as feminist, female, and feminine. I hope the listeners will not confuse the 3 terms with that of ELAINE SHOWALTE'S, because ELAINE SHOWALTE'S divides the women writing into 3 phases, whereas Toril Moi wants to make clarification or define these 3 important categories or 3 important terms, which is very much vital in understanding feminist literary theory. Therefore, the 3 terms feminist, female, and feminine are explained in this essay. Now, the first term, feminist, is a political position, unlike the other 2. Then, female is a matter of biology, and the third one, feminine, is a culturally defined characteristics. So feminist is a political position, female is a matter of biology, and feminine is culturally defined characteristics. See, we have already seen the word feminine, where gender studies focuses much on this third term, feminine, because gender, as I already told you, is a social construction. It is constructed through the qualities, either masculine or feminine. Therefore, the third term, feminine, is culturally defined characteristics. Now, let us learn the clarifications that she has given for each one of these categories. Let me begin with the feminist. So, feminist is purely a political position, and feminist is a person who supports the belief that women should have the same rights and opportunities as men. So, it suggests a political connotation. So the term feminist was very popular in 1960s, when the feminist movement gathered momentum. It was a clarion call for liberation of women from gender-based discrimination and exploitation. In fact, to say, feminists highlighted the struggle against patriarchy and sexism. So feminism stands against these 2 tenets, patriarchy and sexism. Wherever sexism is present, it must start protesting it. Wherever patriarchy is dominant, it makes a stand for anti-patriarchal ideas. Therefore, it is a struggle against patriarchy and sexism. It is purely political. So it was not just a branch of literary criticism. So for example, Kate Millett in her essay Sexual Politics conveys that most pervasive form of exploitation is the power exercised by the males over females. So the power is often exercised by the males over females, and how do they use the power is that they use sex as a key, because sex has played an outstanding role in the consolidation of patriarchal system of political and social power. So they utilize sex as the play to consolidate of patriarchal system of political and social power. Therefore, the dominance of male sexist power over that of female has given a new direction and strength to the patriarchal system in both politics and society. So the close relation between power and politics is determined through the supremacy of sex. So sex is considered to be the supreme tool through which the power plays. So there is a close relation between power and politics. So politics rests in power. So the power is derived through sex. Sex is used as a weapon for the male to dominate the female. So the whole book, Kate Millett, Sexual Politics, is attempting to convey what is patriarchy and how it is a dominant power, and how the power has become a politics, and how the politics has been reigning the female society down the ages. Now, so it must be kept in mind that intimate relation between power and politics is the key point in the evolution of the feminist literary criticism. See, in any feminist literary theory or any feminist writings, we can often come across, particularly in most of the theses of feminism, you cannot simply evade the word patriarchy. So in every page you can find at least 2 to 3 times the word must have been repeated. The obvious reason is that everything is surrounded or revolves around the particular ideology, patriarchy, the male dominated world, or the paternal or superiority of men. So in the cultural and social atmosphere in a patriarchal society, the growth of a feminist perception is severely affected, because feminist perception is limited or affected in the patriarchal society where male perspective is reigning or ruling the text. Therefore, Toril Moi'S calls this a contamination by patriarchal ideology. She uses the term contamination. Usually water is contaminated, and other minerals and other veggies can be contaminated, but here she uses the word contamination by patriarchal ideology. So the feminist space has to be carved out. The feminist space is absconded or is almost not found. So it is a contamination by patriarchal ideology. So what is to do with this contamination by patriarchal ideology? Feminists must find their space fighting politically to fetch their place. There is no way out. So she also suggests a kind of transformation. The word she uses to refer the restating what creative thinkers and writers have always done. So from contamination to transformation, the two terms she uses to denote how patriarchal ideology is ruling and how the feminist space must strive to create its way forth. So the restating what creative thinkers and writers have always done is called a transformation. So the feminist must restate the already given thoughts and the writings. So she distinguishes between transforming ideas and stealing ideas. So after explaining these two terms, contamination and transformation, Toril Moi'S moves to makes a difference between transforming ideas and stealing ideas. She cites the example from DESHPANDE'S book Women of Ideas and What Men Have Done to Them, in which many writers, particularly male writers, have presented women's ideas as their own, that is plagiarism, without any kind of acknowledgement of their borrowings. So that is what is called plagiarism, without any kind of acknowledgement. So you are stealing someone's ideas without acknowledging is called plagiarism. So here it occurs. So DESHPANDE'S book Women of Ideas and What Men Have Done to Them clearly explains how male writers have borrowed certain ideas from women without acknowledging of their borrowing. She also states, on the other hand, women critics and writers borrow men's ideas in order to interpret and transform the prevalent beliefs and assumptions for strengthening and nourishing feminist viewpoint. So women have also borrowed certain ideas from men. In fact, to say ideas are public property, but to own others' ideas as one's own is downright dishonesty. You can question the idea, or you can juxtapose your point of view over the idea, and you can counterattack the idea, but simply claiming others' ideas as your own is downright dishonesty. So the male ideology and theories must be divested, or in fact to say, male's ideology are simply seen through the lens of female ideology. Women are free to appropriate and transform others' ideas for fulfilling their political purposes. So now she justifies that the women's borrowing of men's ideas is not a process of plagiarism or claiming the ideas of men as their own, but to freely appropriate and transform others' ideas for fulfilling their political purpose. For example, Freudian psychoanalysis has been transformed into a theory of female source of difference and the construction of gender in patriarchal society. So Freud's psychoanalysis has been utilized for the better understanding about the theory of female source of difference. And this research is done by Helen Sixers and Lucy Irigaray and many others. This kind of influence is always welcoming. Another such influence is from Sandra Gilbert and Susan Guber and ELAINE Showalter, who have attempted to follow the path of Jacques Derrida. So they started deconstructionism in feminist theory. With this note, I just come to the end of the first term, feminist. So feminist is a political term. It fights against patriarchy and sexism. And I have also introduced the term contamination and transformation, and told you the difference between transforming ideas and stealing ideas. Now we will get into the second term, female. Female, which means being a woman or girl or of woman, typical of women and affecting women. Let me repeat. Female, which means being a woman or girl or of women, typical of women and affecting women. But simply it connotes biological category, unlike feminist, which was political connotation. Now, female, the period of female can be said before 1960s. The term female connotes writing by women, which does not imply feminist writings. So Toril Moi'S says, all the writings are not feminist writing. Particularly, all the female writings are not simply labeled as feminist writing. Then what makes feminist writing special is that it must have some political cause. So the political cause or causes determine the value and the label called feminist. So everything written by women does not present or articulate an attitude against patriarchal social constructs. If only the writing is anti-patriarchal, it may be called feminist. As far as female writings are concerned, women writing in the past exposed the male arrogance of the kind of patriarchal stereotyping feminists want to combat. Say one example, Rosalind Coward, in her essay entitled "Are Women Novels Feminist Novels?" observed that women novelists have only been strengthening the conventional and stereotyped portrayal of women, designed and planned by men. Therefore, they are not fighting for a political cause. The female writings or female, the term, have simply started accepting the stereotypes, the stereotypical portrayal of women, which was designed and planned by men. Instead of questioning the conventions, they are strengthening the conventions. So questioning the convention is the realm of feminist. Strengthening the conventions is the realm of female writings. Particularly in female writings, the female body and emotion experience have been depicted in the traditional humiliating manner. So female humiliate themselves in female writings. Such a type of literature cannot be termed as feminist. So many feminist critics, on the other hand, write about male critics and authors in order to bring to light their anti-feminist attitudes. So this is another idea from the term female. Many feminist critics, on the other hand, write about male critics and authors in order to bring to light their anti-feminist attitudes. This anti-feminist attitude is not also coming under the category of feminist. Only anti-patriarchal or anti-sexist ideas can be termed as feminist. The anti-feminist attitude cannot be termed as female or cannot be termed as feminist as far as Toril Moi'S is concerned. Say for example, Kate Millett in Sexual Politics exposes Norman Mailer, Henry Miller and D.H. Lawrence ideas, who are considered to be anti-feminist. Therefore, this habit cannot be called feminist. So according to Toril Moi'S, another important point in the female phase is that men cannot be feminist because they indulge in strengthening in feminist criticism. John Stuart Mill has written a treatise on feminism, subjection of women, but he cannot be termed as feminist because according to Toril Moi'S, men can never be feminist. So they can never experience the female stand. Now, we will move on to the third category, the final category in this feminist literary theory, which is feminine. So we have so far seen what Toril Moi'S means by feminist and female. Now we get into the third term, feminine, which is already familiar to you, since we have already seen in gender studies what is the quality of feminine is a quality, and the quality determines the gender. Now, feminine, which implies connected with women, denotes cultural aspect. Let me tell you again the difference among the three terms. So the feminist stands for political connotation, female stands for biological category, and feminine stands for cultural aspect or cultural category. So political, biological, cultural, in short. Now, feminine is a cultural construct and differs from female and feminist. So that we can say gender is a cultural construct, feminine is also cultural construct, and there is a close resemblance between gender and feminine, because feminine is the quality which largely determines the gender role. Now, according to Moi'S, it means patterns of sexuality and behavior imposed by cultural and social norms. So it is not a natural one, it is imposed by cultural and social norms. So it's a sexuality and behavior which they may not claim their own, because it is imposed by cultural and social norms which they can only imitate and perform. So this premise implies that one is not born a woman, one becomes one, says Simone de Beauvoir in her famous book The Second Sex. So being a woman is not in your hands, it is predetermined. Being a woman is predetermined. You are not born as a woman, you become one. It means you are constructed to become, or you are assigned the role. Though you like it or not, you are assigned it. So it's a social imposition on you. So it conveys the sociology of gender. Now we will go further into the term feminine. So the study of the subtle evolution of the sexist system in the social organization. She also writes, women is riveted into lopsided relationship with men. He is the one, she is the other. So women is the one and women is the other. So there is a dichotomy comes into existence. This one, the other, or self, the other, stand for significant, insignificant. Without the self, the other is not there. So to define the self, the other is mandatory. So the other comes into the self. So self is a big circle into which comes the single and little circle called other. So the other must find meaning into the big circle. She does not own or find her own meaning at all, that is identity at all. The identity is found in the male itself. So men's dominance has secured an ideological climate of compliance. Say for an example, legislators, priests, philosophers, writers, scientists have striven to show that the subordinate position of women is willed in heaven and advantageous on earth. Men in every field consider that women has been given the subordinate role naturally. It is willed in heaven and advantageous on earth. So men for sword, women needle fit, says Tennyson. Otherwise all else confusion, he says so. So men determines even what is natural for women. As I told you, the big circle into which the small circle comes. So men determines even what is natural for women. So what is natural for women cannot be determined by women herself. It is in the hands of men. As if men dictates, women take notes. So men dictate, women take notes. She is a note taker and he is a dictator. Thus, the patriarchal manifestation of femininity is a curious amalgamation of ideologies, concepts, behavioral patterns, literature, arts, and dress code. So, feminists assert that it is natural for women to be female, but it does not mean that they will be feminine. So, it is very essential to understand these two sentences so that we can have a clarity over the three terms. Feminists assert that it is natural for women to be female. So it's quite natural that everyone who is born with certain qualities will be called female. But it does not mean that they will be feminine. So it seems very clear that female is quite natural, but feminine is a cultural. So it should be asserted by a feminist. So feminist can alone say there is difference. Why female is so and why feminine is so. Why female is a natural role to play, while feminine is a constructed role to be assigned. Now feminists assert that it is natural for women to be female, but it does not mean that they will be feminine. So the three terms come into this statement. Now, what is femininity or feminine? It's the fact of being a woman, or the qualities that are considered typical of women. But to define femininity in social cultural context is somewhat difficult. Now, we will move on to the essay written by Hélène Cixous, a French feminist. She talks about the binary opposition. So Toril Moi'S explains the binary opposition matters a lot. It needs a scrutiny and a political change as well. Because the binary opposition stands for male and female, has been created in a patriarchal socio-cultural order in order to confer a place of superiority to man as the only source of validity and authority. So man is the only source of validity and authority. So Hélène Cixous, a feminist, French feminist, says or argues strongly against the binary opposition. Because female as a cultural expression suggests weakness, deficiency, frailty. Therefore, the male-female opposition reveals the cultural sexist biases, imbalances. Cultural sexist imbalances. So the male-female opposition reveals not only sexist imbalances but also cultural. Therefore, it seems it is a cultural sexist bias. So according to Helen Sixers, the binary opposition must vanish. This opposition should be radically analyzed and found a new way out. Therefore, she expects the readers to imagine a real liberation of sexuality, that is, a transformation of our relationship to our body. So, down the ages, women have related themselves, their identity, their role, then their attitudes, behavior, everything they have related to their body. They think that it springs from their body. Their behavior springs from their body. Therefore, Helen Sixers wants a transformation of a relationship to our body, probably to another body. An approximation of immense material, organic, sensual universe that we are, this not being possible, of course, without equally radical political transformation. She has not given any clear-cut path to go with, whereas she suggests the readers to create a radical political transformation. So, now we will get into the final or concluding part of this essay. What is feminist criticism and what is feminist theory? According to Toril Moi'S, feminist criticism reduces women to the state of interesting scientific objects on par with insects or nuclear particles. That is, it has merely made the status of women as insects or nuclear particles, that is, an experimental products. In fact, feminist criticism is not mainly feminist, but is simply concerned with the study of women. So she finds wrong with the feminist theory. In most often times it has been merely study of women instead of feminist. I have already told you the difference between female and feminist. So it talks about female, it never fights for the cause of women. So merely narrating and stating something about women is not feminism. Stating something about anti-patriarchal ideas or anti-sexist ideas must be called feminist. So it adopts somewhat a political and disinterested line of study with regard to women. So she expects the second category is gynocritics, or women as writers and critics. These two theories homogenize all female writings into feminist self-expression. So according to Moy, the feminist theory deals with construction of femininity. Say one example, Kate Millett rejects some main concept as envy, female narcissism, female masochism. So female narcissism, that is forgetting oneself in the prizing of oneself, or too much glorification of oneself, will not be useful to women. And another writer, Lucy Irigaray, she says that due to the very old repression on exploitation, women have failed to cultivate a suitable way of expressing themselves. Therefore, they have adapted men's language. They are simply miming male discourse. So the imitation of male discourse and adaptation of male language is the outcome of age-old repression and exploitation women have failed to cultivate. So women has undergone. So it is difficult to define femininity. Some critics think that definitions are enough. Some critics think that definitions are reducing the feminist to a feminist status. So, two perspective on definitions. One is it is essential. Another one is it reduces the value of feminist literary theory. So Toril Moi'S suggests that it is necessary to at once to deconstruct the opposition between traditionally masculine and feminine values and to confront the full political force and reality of such categories. So after much deliberation, Toril Moi'S defines female as writing by women. So let me come to the end of this episode where we can once again look at the three terms. So she defines female as writing by women irrespective of its nature and tenor. So all the writings by women will not be called feminist, they are simply called female. Feminist implies anti-sexist and anti-patriarchal position. Then the third one, feminine, stands for the exploited, marginalized and muted class by ruling social and linguistic order, that is cultural category. So definitions and labels and categories do not put an end to the debate, but they begin it. It is necessary for making the debate and progressing the debate. Therefore she mentions that, Toril Moi mentions that, I have framed these three terms and I have explained and demystified these three terms only to make the debate interesting and to know that it is the beginning or the right platform to begin. So according to her, there is nothing like intrinsically feminist text. So no intrinsically feminist text. The text once comes into light, we will come to know whether it is feminist or not. And to conclude, the feminist critics should vehemently oppose the patriarchal critics and thinkers who steal from feminist critics. What is important is to either aim steadily and continue to create a feminist space. So this is what is the core of this essay, that aim steadily and continually to create a feminist space. Both Virginia Woolf and Toril Moi speak about the space, that is room or privacy, or a place to contemplate and experiment. So with this note, I just would like to conclude that this plays a pivotal role in feminist literary theory because she has made the three terms very clear for the better understanding of the newcomer to the feminist literary theory. And she has also mentioned some of the popular works in the theory and acknowledged them because they have only framed or developed the ideas that she has given in this essay. So proper citations are given so that we can refer and understand the three different terms that she has used in this essay. With this note, I just wind up this session or episode. Thank you so much.